of my life. In the darkness is the light.
Hello, and welcome once again to the So Weird podcast. I'm Kat.
I'm Kathy.
I'm Melissa.
And I'm Jimmy.
We are back with an awesome treat for you guys. Please join us in welcoming a very special guest. She's a Gemini award-winning actress, singer, songwriter, model, producer, and director. She starred in many memorable films and TV shows like Instant Star and Final Destination 3, but we know her best as the lead of So Weird Season 3. We are so pleased to be talking with Alexz Johnson.
Hi, what a great introduction. Oh my gosh, I'm a model now? Oh my goodness. I didn't know.
And thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, this is exciting. Like, I'm so happy that, there's this, there's still this love for this like classic show that was such a part of my life. It's kind of like I'm going back in time right now. So thank you for that opportunity.
Yeah, it's like 20 years ago.
No, don't say that.
So we'll start off with the questions. This is from another member of our podcast that couldn't be here today. His name is Zach. His question is, how did you first become interested in singing and acting? And how did you get involved in So Weird specifically?
Okay, so basically when I was younger, I wasn't necessarily interested in acting so much. I was very interested in singing and music. Like I was doing choir in elementary school and doing singing lessons, and I really gravitated towards like, Barbra Streisand and like the musical Les Mis and Celine Dion, and acting just wasn't really on the it wasn't really a calling for me. And before I got So Weird, I'd actually gone to an agent in my small town. I kind of walked in and I just said, look, like I want to sing and I don't know where to go to make this happen. And I was kind of doing like town fairs and stuff like that. And I had won some like, call-in competitions and stuff. Like for the Canucks, I won the anthem to sing at the Canucks game, which was huge for me at like 12. And he basically was like, wow, like you have this kind of interesting personality. And I was very like straightforward and kind of goofy. And at that point, he just said, I'm going to get, he talked to my mom and he said, I'm interested in getting your daughter into auditions. So I didn't even know what that world was about. Like I was doing, commercials and I think Staples commercials and the Hasbro toy commercial. And I kind of got the hang of it pretty quick. But again, I always was curious about any roles that would come my way that involved singing and music, something like that. And when So Weird came along, it was such a long shot. Like I was just a girl from a small town, British Columbia. I had no idea that, I would even be on the short list to be in the Disney series. And I was flown down. I did an audition. I think downtown Vancouver. And then after that, I think my tape went to LA and Henry Winkler saw my tape and was like, let's fly her down. And I was just, up against, I think about 4 other girls, maybe 5 for the part of Annie and screen tested and just went home and basically went back to my small town and was like, like, what are the odds of, a girl like me, from a middle-class family, an amazing family, but a hardworking family, we didn't really have any ins with the industry at all. I didn't have parents in the industry. I had no uncle or aunt in the industry. And I was like, what are the odds of me actually getting this role? So I kind of let it go, went back to, to my normal classes at school and playing basketball and sports. And then all of a sudden I got this phone call and this bouquet of flowers arrived at the house, massive, like the biggest amount of flowers I've ever seen. And it said, congratulations on, being our Annie. And then from that day on, I was just like, it was crazy. So that's kind of the, I guess, long story.
That's cool. I always think the Henry Winkler connection with So Weird is so cool because, I guess you wouldn't think that he's part of this little show.
Yeah, I know. It's, and even like just the connection of having Mackenzie Phillips, like she is such, like, she's so iconic. It was a real special show. Like there were some incredible writers a part of the show and actors a part of that show. And And it even led, like that show specifically led to me landing the role of Jude Harrison. And I don't know if people actually know that, but I worked, Belinda Metz, who played the manager on that show, to Mackenzie Phillips. What was her character's name again at the top of my head?
Irene.
Irene, that's right. Irene, Belinda Metz, who played Irene, yeah, like she basically was friends with the executive producers of Degrassi, and she was the one who actually got me an audition for Instant Star. I was like, I didn't even, my agent didn't even get like the audition information. She specifically called the executive producers, Stephen and Linda, and said, I guess she had heard about the project and it was kind of in development. And she said, I know who needs to, play this character. And they were like, okay. And all right, it's kind of like, imagine a friend telling a friend like, oh, like I know the perfect person and it's not my niece or my, this girl I worked with a couple years ago on a series,
Mhm.
and I guess they trusted her. And then I, with Stephanie Gorin, who's a casting director out of Vancouver, I yeah, I was able to put myself on tape for that. And again, you know, at that point in my career, I had been so close to so many things. I had almost gotten the role of the lead of Freaky Friday. I was
Wow.
I never
yeah.
knew you were up for that.
Yeah, I was up for Freaky Friday big time. I actually did a screen test with Annette Bening for that
Oh, wow.
to play my mom, and I got to meet Gary Marshall and Mark Waters was the director of that, and he personally called me and said that I really am going to fight for you for this, but it sounds like there's an actress who has a previous deal with Disney. I think she had like a couple movie deals with Disney, which was the amazing Lindsay Lohan. And so yeah, I had gone through it so many times at that point in my acting career. I'd been so used to like getting close to things, so you just couldn't get really too excited. But I felt in my heart like Instant Star was something that, if they just checked out my tape, and they kind of gave me a chance, that it kind of felt a bit kismet, that character. But long story short, Belinda Metz made it possible for me to even be on that series.
That's
Wow.
so cool. I always felt like Jude was made for you.
Yeah, Jude, right? I know. Isn't that funny how like you can, and that's why I always feel like in the industry, it's so important that you treat people with the utmost respect in all circumstances, because it's interesting how many people are watching as you kind of go along your journey. And I always, like my mom always told me, the same people you meet on the way up are the same people you meet on the way down. So
Aw.
and I think that's so true, because it's like, life moves on, and it was so great working with Belinda, and she remembered me as a kid, and like how cool is that? Like she must have thought that I took the job seriously, and I was very responsible, and so those things, I don't know, it kind of stuck with me in my career, that like people can make things happen for you, so try to keep your relationships strong and intact in the industry.
That's so cool. Thank you for sharing all of that with us.
You're welcome.
Getting back to So Weird and thinking about Annie Thelen, if you could pick any song that could capture the spirit of Annie, what song would you pick?
Like outside of the show or
Mhm.
within the show? Oh, outside of the show of Annie? Oh my goodness, that's not an easy question.
I know, it's my favorite one to ask.
Let me see. Okay, let me think about that. Let's go back to that question, because
Okay.
yeah, that's like I love a lot of songs, so I'd have to give that some thought. So let's come back to that.
All
All
right.
right.
This next question is from Emily, another co-host of ours who couldn't be here tonight. Have you ever experienced anything supernatural? And if not, what's the weirdest thing that has ever happened to you?
Um, I mean, not really. I feel like in my own life, stuff like that doesn't really like follow me. Like my older sister has some crazy stories, and friends of mine have stories like extreme circumstances of like literally seeing like aliens and like in their like crazy stuff like that. But for me, I would just say really strong senses of deja vu. Like I've had such strong senses that I've been like having this conversation with somebody, and it's like, I feel like everything kind of slows down around me, and it's like weird time. I don't know, like maybe I don't know, I've been in this situation before or something, and I always take that as a sign that like I'm on the right path in my life. I don't know what else to take the sign as, so I just decided that's what I'll do. But not really anything like that. I've had more like, I look at it more like spiritual, um, like I've sensed something in the room, and it's always felt like more of like a positive spiritual thing around me. And I've questioned if that's like my grandma or people, just like watching out for me. I guess kind of like Annie, she always had that kind of feeling, and her Panther was there. But I don't have like an animal, so to speak. But I definitely, yeah, I feel a strong sense of like I'm being taken care of, and what that is specifically, I don't know, but I guess that's the closest thing I could say when it comes to that.
Nice. So you had talked about working with the cast and crew. How is it like working with them, especially Mackenzie Phillips, and singing some songs with her?
Oh, it was amazing. Like, she was just like so, Mackenzie was such a light, like working with her. She had been through so much in her life that I feel like she was so giving with everybody around her. And I learned a lot being a young actress, just watching her and doing scenes with her. And obviously, I studied her discography or like her filmography, like all the stuff that she had done, both from music to acting. And, I think I just very quickly just developed a lot of respect for Mackenzie for all the stuff that she'd pulled through in her life. And I really do believe that when it comes to emoting in your music and in film and TV, I do think that some of the greatest actors and musicians really do go through some of the hardest turmoils, because I think I don't think it's possible to like really touch people's spirits without, having some kind of like, some stuff that you've gone through to get to that place so you can share with them. I think people are really smart that way, and they can kind of sense. So when I worked with Mackenzie, it was like, I really just sensed that that people can go through so much in their life yet still like literally be heroes for other people. And that's what, yeah. So working with her was at such a young age, amazing, like just incredible.
So this question is kind of writer to writer, since I'm actually currently writing a book in which the main character is like a busking traveling musician. So music is very intertwined with the story, but I've never really written songs. So I'm wondering, how would you describe your songwriting process, and what advice would you give to someone who would like to get into writing music?
Um, well, wow. The first thing I'd say is start journaling and start writing down, like, no matter, like, don't give yourself any rules, even if you think it's like, you're going to feel stupid in moments. You're going to feel like it's not good enough. We always feel like something's not good enough. Just start from a place of just writing everything down and get used to that, like get used to just having like your morning pages where you get up and you have a cup of coffee and whatever's on your mind, just write it, and just know that you can burn that piece of paper. And
Yeah.
it does not need to be anything that exists. It's just a good exercise to get you into writing words and really sharing your emotion, which I think is really that's hard to do, so I would say start with that, and then also just play your music as much as you can with people. Grab your guitar if someone's making dinner, you're hanging out, if there's people, don't be afraid to don't like be the annoying person who always has the guitar either, who's, but like gauge the situation and be like, you'll get used to kind of like, getting reactions from people and people going, wow, like that's really beautiful. And that in itself will give you just a little bit more confidence to kind of feel like, this isn't as complicated as I thought it was. Maybe if I just get out of my head a bit and I start just like being fearless, like I just write what I feel and sing what I feel, then, there's room for that. And people have so much room for that. How often would you hear somebody's, if they opened up to you, majority of the time you're thankful for them opening up to you.
Yeah.
No one's there to critique or criticize when somebody's just at the beginning stages of that creativity. It's beautiful to witness. So just know that like in your own way, you are, you're giving a gift to other people, even by sharing that, because we need more of that in this world,
Yeah.
Yeah. So good job.
Thank you, Alexz. So My questions, you have to forgive me if my questions are neither here nor there, but I assure you they mean a lot to me and they mean a lot to your longtime fans. I have clarification questions about some of your previous projects that I've been wanting to ask you for a long time. Um, This first question I have, I did actually ask you this privately when I saw you in 2012 during your Skipping Stone tour, the first time I got to see you. But some fans are still posting this song under your name and I guess still believe that it's you. But could you clarify if you've ever recorded your own version of What You Do With Your Voodoo, the Molly Phillips song? Did you ever create a version yourself?
What you do with your voodoo? I would have to hear the song, to be honest. I don't recall ever singing that song. Does it sound like me when you listen to it?
It sounds a little bit like you, like a demo. It's that what you do with your voodoo. Remember that? And did you ever record a version? I know
Well,
it might be hard.
no,
Not you.
that's definitely not me. In fact, no, that's not me. I never sang that. That's Mackenzie's song, and in fact, that sounds like it's either Mackenzie, from what I can hear, or it's a demo singer that was, basically singing a demo for Mackenzie to then sing the song.
That's what I thought.
Good job, you little detectives.
That's me.
Yeah, I think it was a demo singer that sounds in between of you and Mackenzie.
Yeah, but yeah, she has a great voice, but no, I could tell right away it's not me. But let's debunk that as soon as possible.
Thank you so much for your advice to Melissa. As an English teacher, I love your journaling advice. It's so precious and important.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet to hear. Yeah, I mean, look, we're all in this together, right? We're all
Yeah.
on this planet, taking it day by day, and I think it's important to hear that kind of, it's the advice that I'm thankful for getting in my life when I was younger,
Yeah, thanks so much for passing it along.
Of course.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then the next question from Zach is, what was it like stepping into the iconic comic character of Saturn Girl for your appearance on Smallville?
Oh my gosh, I felt like it was a whole different school of acting and physical, like in the embodiment of physical, like portraying a character physically. It was very challenging because I felt like I kind of had to unlearn all of my natural instinctual when I act with my hands and your expressions and like that kind of, free flow acting. I had to really restrict myself to kind of acting like an action figure. I almost like I literally had to like tell myself, do not raise your arms right now. Do not like keep your face as calm and confident as possible. Like it was so against what I was used to as an actress that it was like, yeah, I learned a lot. I mean, it's a lot harder than it looks to be that stoic and strong and like, in every scene, you're kind of like a cardboard cutout, So I have so much respect for like actors that have done that, on the regular in their career. It's like, it's harder than it looks.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that.
Mm-hmm.
And now going back to the character of Annie. When we think of Annie, it's usually not far behind from our thoughts to also think of the Panther that follows Annie around. So we were wondering, did you ever think of giving the Panther a name? Because in the fandom, he came to be known as Conrad. So have you ever given him a name of your own, or what do you think of the name Conrad for him?
I love the name Comrade. I mean, he was just always like just Panther, Panthy the Panther. We just sound like Panther, He was just yeah, that was I think I called him Panthy. I remember
That's cute.
oh, we're using Panthy again. And what's funny is that I remember I had moments on set where I got to like be in the same room as a real Panther. I don't know if you guys know that.
Really?
Yeah. So they always had for me to act to, which is so funny because I feel like in my career, from Stranger with My Face to, even moments of Devil's Diary, I feel like it's been many times where I've had to act to an object. And because of this Panther kind of being like the CGI being put into shots, I'd always have this big stuffed Panther that I would act to. They'd bring it in, like they'd have it in the room and like they'd put it there and so the camera would know where the Panther was and whatever. And I actually got to keep that Panther and it
Aw.
Oh, wow.
stay on my bed for like, and I felt like it's my Panther, and it was just just in my bedroom for like years after. So weird, it was like this Panther that I got from that show. But yeah, I got to actually see like a real life Panther. Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
Yeah. Little trivia.
I always just thought it was really bad CGI.
Yeah, I know. Well, it shows you. Yeah, it was. It shows you how far we've come when it comes to like, I
Yeah.
think So Weird was really on the cusp of doing some pretty like ballsy things at that time, like using special effects, and that's why it was such a fun show to be on, because it's like put your hand in this goop and like science experiments, and like I felt like I was always it was such an exciting show to be a part of, because they were always trying to do all these cool, so weird effects and stuff, and a lot of them were real effects because CGI wasn't as great back then. So it was like I got to see all these real effects happen all the time, and great makeup and all that stuff. Trying to make like the what's that little gremlin child? Seeing that come to life was
Oh, the
interesting.
changeling.
Changeling.
Oh, yeah.
I'll never forget that line. Grotesque, outer worldly. I was like, what kid says outer worldly? But Annie does, so there you go. So funny.
So this next question is from Emily. What was it like filming Penpal, the episode where you played two different versions of Annie? Did you find it more challenging than fun, or vice versa?
I found it kind of like, wow, that's bringing back so many memories. It was kind of like a coming of age episode for me, because I've always prided myself on being like, like a good girl, especially at that age, like I always kind of like, I was never like, I was like bullied in school for being, for stuttering and having rosacea, and then getting, the lead choir positions. I was always so used to kind of being like, I never chose being aggressive or being a bully or being like as a way to kind of define myself in school situations. I choose like I was friends with everybody, and I always wanted to make people laugh, and I was always like, I'll help you with your homework, and like I was the girl who was like, yeah, like I'll give you my chocolate bar, like of course I'll give you my chocolate bar. Like it was almost to the point where it's like I was such a giving kid that my parents had to be like, Alex, like you don't have to share so much. Like I know you're from a big family and you have all these siblings, but you can, like you don't have to do that. And I'm like, well, that person wanted it more than me. So when I got that character, I remember being kind of scared playing that girl, because I didn't have any real like background of like, I didn't know like, how do I portray this tougher girl who smokes and who's like wearing leather jackets and dark makeup, and at that age, having the innocence of being that young, right? To portray that was kind of scary. I was kind of stepping out of my comfort zone as a young girl. But I remember, like looking up some films, and I remember just kind of studying it, and it was really fun. And it also prepped me for other projects that would come later in my life. But yeah, at that time, it was kind of nerve wracking. I'm like, because this isn't who I am. And when you're that young, you're still discovering who you are as a young woman and what you identify with. And, so it was kind of scary, but it was also, at that age, it really kind of like, it gave me some tools that I used later in my life.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
This next question is, what were your thoughts on being the new lead on season 3, and what challenges came with that, if any?
It was, I didn't have any kind of insight. I didn't know, and I wasn't involved with anything that had gone down previously on the show. And yeah, it was interesting, because I was coming in on a situation that had already been kind of established. It's kind of like joining a band, and being like a singer of a band when the band's already been a band, for a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of had to tread and kind of, it came with a level of kind of learning as I went, like learning, the acting styles of different actors, and like, oh, like don't sit in that chair, that's somebody's chair, like don't. So I kind of came in, and I had to really kind of like put the pieces together quick on how it worked on that set and how they did the things that they did to make this show so great. So that was like, again, it's just total learning experience, and it was such a great cast and crew, and I really feel like they welcomed me so warmly, and I never felt from anybody any kind of any vibe of like anyone's replacing anybody, and even working with Cara, that first, I think it was the first episode or two that we worked together.
Mhm.
It was it was a wonderful experience, and it was really just kind of learning and watching her and learning at what she, because for me, I'd never been the lead of a series before, or even on a series before. I'd never been in that position of coming in and having this much dialogue and kind of being this character for my age. So I really just learned and took every chance to just kind of like learn as much as I could in that circumstance. So yeah, it was a big responsibility at that age, so I took it seriously.
Mhm. Thank you.
I actually wanted you to be able to talk about weight a little bit, so you get a little bit of that out to our audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have actually a series of questions. So yeah, back in April, you released your latest single, "Wait," which is from an album that was meant to be released in 2009, I believe, under Epic or Sony. How did that come about?
Yeah, I actually, that was just something that I had to do in my life. It's an album that never really got to be released, and the songs never got to be heard the way that I wanted them to be heard. And it was just kind of like I had the ability, I had the material, and me and my brother just decided our new studio that we've basically put together in Toronto. We've really kind of, decided to, as brother and sister, that we're going to make this happen, and we started recording. And I released Wait as kind of like an introduction to the next musical chapter of my life. And I have a lot of stuff I'm going to be releasing very soon. A lot of, and I'm really proud of this next chapter in this music. But like anything in life, you can have the best of intentions when it comes to timelines, but life also happens, and yeah, I've had to allow other things to kind of take precedent in my life right now. But that's not to say that things aren't moving forward, and I'm not doing everything in my power and my ability to continue with my timelines and continue with the work to be able to sustain this next album.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of goodies and a lot of stuff that that will be coming out around this time, and I'm excited about it because it was such a hard record to attack at this time in my life with everything that came with it. And that's why Wait, it was so fun to release Wait as kind of like it's just kind of a bit of a teaser of what's to come,
Yeah. And I'm also wondering if the tracks will be the same as what would have been on the original Wait album, or if there are some new songs along with it.
Oh, these are good questions. It's definitely not going to be what I think the fans are expecting. It's definitely there's some treats, there's some old, and there's some new, and
Awesome.
and obviously it's not going to be the same record because I'm not the same woman. It's going to be its own special thing.
Awesome. I cannot wait. When do you think we can see the full album release? I mean, obviously you won't give us an exact date now, but this year, next year?
I'll have a couple singles coming out this year. I truly do, and I already am in the process of planning it. I see touring, and I see the full album release happening next year.
Awesome.
And yeah, so that,
Please come to California.
yeah, definitely U.S. and Canada. And I also want to get over to Europe. And, obviously, like, this is a big record for me, like it's like A Stranger Time was such a special album. And it was such a different process with that because I went into a studio and I recorded live off the floor and I had written the songs.
Yeah.
And I came in with a band and I did the record. And but this album kind of reminds me of like kind of what me and Brendan did with Voodoo. We really have gone back to the basics of recording with live instruments and also writing some new material and also lifting the songs in a way that maybe never got a chance to be, because Brendan and I, we weren't able to produce the Wait record at that time. We had produced all the demos, but our vision for that record, it was in the hands of someone else, and that we ended up doing a beautiful project together, and that never got released. So we've kind of gone back to the drawing board and been like, what is the record that we wanted to release? as brother and sister, you know, like what we have to put this out the way that we've always envisioned it, because we owe it.
Yeah.
We owe it to not only, you know, our fans who care, we also owe it to ourselves as brother and sister, writing as a writing team. So that's why it's been such a unique and long process, because talk about perfectionism.
Yeah.
It's been like not right, not right, not right. Okay, that's good. Moving on. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, I'm sure everybody in our close life is just like, okay, like when is it going to be done? But right now we're in the process of getting the masters done and doing music videos, and there's a lot of other things that we're putting together right now.
Yeah, I cannot wait to hear the rest of it.
Yeah, well, good. I'm so glad.
So that was very beautiful. I've definitely been watching your journey with Brendan Johnson, and how you guys have always come together to release beautiful music for your fans. And I, for one, am extremely excited for this next chapter in both of your musical careers. I can't wait. But this next question I have is not music related or So Weird related. Again, it has to do with the previous project. Just to clarify, your IMDb and your Wikipedia show that you had worked in 2005 on a made-for-TV film called Falcon Beach, and I purchased it. I can't spot you in it, and I just wanted you to clarify if you actually worked on Falcon Beach, the film, made-for-TV film.
No, you know what's so funny is that my friend Devin Weigel, who is like amazing and she's hilarious, and please check her stuff out. She was on that show. I've tried everything. I've contacted IMDb. There's some kind of credit attached to that. It's a glitch in the system. I was never on Falcon Beach. I know the actors of Falcon Beach. It was a really great. It was a TV show actually that was filmed in Canada. And no, I was not on that show. So another thing to clarify. Thank you for asking. I just can't. For some reason, I can't. Sometimes it's harder with those things like Wikipedia and IMDb to edit it yourself than it is for someone else to.
Well, I'll take care of it for you, Alex. I'll get it off there because I do a lot of editing for both websites. So now that I got that clarification, I will help you and take that off.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
You got it. Thank you. All right, moving on.
The next question from me. You said you were from British Columbia. Do you still live in Canada?
Actually, I'm between two places right now. I am living in Canada for the moment, doing renovations on a property, and but I also still have a residence in Brooklyn. So I'm in between both places, and I'm actually a dual citizen. So
Okay.
yeah, it's nice to have that freedom to be able to kind of go back and forth. But I'm spending my summer up in Canada right now as we speak.
Nice. Yeah, I like to ask this question to most of the people from So Weird because it was filmed in Canada. So I like to ask, like, how do you like living in Canada? Because I've been to BC before and it's very beautiful. It's like my favorite vacation spot.
Yeah, it is. Canada's beautiful. I mean, it's nice having the best of both worlds. Like I love being able to go down to Nashville for writing and going to, LA. It's always great to, be working on stuff in LA and then New York. But I also love coming back because there's this, I grew up on like acreage and I grew up with kind of like the quiet of that and like I love gardening and I love being able to have the best of both worlds, and it's really important for me, so, and for my dog, so yeah.
Thank you.
All right, and this next question is one that we kept getting over and over again. So we have a lot of fans wondering, do you have a favorite Molly Phillips song from the show?
Oh man, I love the opening song of So Weird.
In the Darkness?
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. It has this really gospel chanty, in the darkness is the light.
I love that you still know it.
Is the light. And I think her vocal's awesome on that. So I'd say I love that one. Yeah. And I came up with a song that I think would represent any Phelan.
Yeah?
Yes. And just based on her life and based on the vibe, I think it would be Life in a Northern Town by the Dream Academy.
I'm writing that down. I'm going to check it out.
I don't know why. I just feel like with her upbringing and everything Annie Phelan went through and I think the kind of music that she gravitated towards and just her as a character, I don't know why, but I think that song kind of, to me, kind of it represents her.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is another one we've been getting a lot from the fans. Have you ever listened to Mackenzie's music? And if so, do you have a favorite song of hers?
Oh man, I really couldn't tell you a favorite song. I think everything that Mackenzie has done, and her voice and the way that she emotes is like, I don't have a favorite song for Mackenzie. I feel like maybe I'm just too close to, having worked with her, and it's not like, I guess, when you can pick out a song from, like someone that you've never really been able to meet or connect with. I just feel like her catalog of music is beautiful. And I listen to her stuff, when you get to work with people in your career, it's like everything they put out. I kind of feel like, it'd be hard for me to pick. And I hope Mackenzie keeps putting out music,
Yeah.
I'm always waiting for stuff, thinking like, please put out something else. I'm sure people think that about me sometimes too, maybe. I don't know. It's always nice to have people that are listening and that care about your music. It's a blessing.
I think it was like a year ago, I was able to track down this old commercial you had worked on called with Louis Rich, and I actually didn't know you were in a Hasbro toy commercial, and now that like totally enlightened me to be excited and want to search for it, because I love all of your projects. But I noticed on your IMDb that you were in a commercial with Chicken Walla, and I don't know what that is, and I was wondering if you could clarify if that's true and what that was.
Chicken Walla, it could have been like a sandwich meat commercial. I know that I was in like a sandwich meat commercial when I was young. And a snooty teenager, and I think that's been discovered somewhere.
It was me. Yeah, I found it for you.
Oh yeah, I know that one, but I don't know. Once again, like, oh my gosh, like looking back that long ago, that doesn't sound like it rings a bell to me. I almost have questioned if there's like an actress named Alexz without a Z. Maybe Alexz Johnson, like another actress or something, because I see these projects come up, and I don't remember ever being in that kind of commercial or doing voice for a commercial like that.
So could I ask, what was the Hasbro toy commercial that you were in, if you remember?
This toy, it was like a weird, I think it was kind of like what are those sticks that you play with as a kid, and you kind of rolled it on your arms, and you kind of like, do you guys remember those sticks? Like, you'd do tricks with them, kind of like a cheerleader, and it would roll off your arms and you'd catch it.
Like a baton?
Kind of like that, yeah. It was like a baton type thing for Hasbro, if I recall. But yeah, I was in a Hasbro commercial. I remember.
Cool.
And I was so young. I was so little, and there were so many toy commercials at that time. And I was like, I'll do it. It's fun. And you always got a free toy out of it. So you'd be like, yeah.
Nice. Thank
when you're
you.
a kid, you're like, money? Like, I don't care. I want the free toy, and like, I want like crafty food. What's that?
Yeah. So another question we got from many fans is, what was your favorite episode and song from So Weird?
Because You're Watching Over Me it's probably one of my favorite songs. I just think the writing of it is so beautiful. I didn't have anything to do with writing that song, and I also think that episode is beautiful. The whole message. I think it was like, I was so lucky to have that song, be able to sing it at that age. It really kind of showcased my vocals, which is so important, when you're a young vocalist. And this was before I was just starting to write music for myself. When you're that young, that's why you gravitate towards, when you're a singer, the blessing of those kinds of songs, because they really showcase your voice. And sometimes as a singer-songwriter, you're not thinking about showcasing your voice as much as like emoting all these things that you're just like, you want to get out. And it's almost like cathartic for you, hoping it's cathartic for people who are listening. But when you're just like, screw it, and there's an amazing song that's presented to you, you're like, yeah, I'll sing that song, because like, I feel it, and like, I can emote it, and it can show my voice. And to be that young, to have a song like that, when my voice was still growing and becoming, what it was to be, was a real blessing. So that's probably my favorite episode, and my favorite time, actually, one of my favorite moments of shooting that show. Was by the fire, and really kind of feeling out like my vocals,
Yeah, I think that was definitely one of the most beautiful moments in season 3 of So Weird.
Aww.
Right, and then this next question is from Flavio on Twitter. Alexz, would you ever make a song in collaboration with Mackenzie?
Oh, of course I would. Are you kidding? Yeah. I mean, Mackenzie Phillips, Lori McKenna is also an amazing artist. The list could go on. Yeah, absolutely, I would.
Awesome.
She's so cool. I hope you guys. I don't know if you guys have had the opportunity to meet her in person, but she's so awesome. She really is, and she's still supporting. Like I'll post things, and she's always right there to kind of be a voice for people, and I think that that's so beautiful.
Oh yeah, I follow her on Twitter, and all the work that she's doing is amazing. And I love that she is still so supportive of the So Weird fandom.
Isn't that? I know. Me too. It's the history. You can't forget about the history.
Yeah,
I want them to bring it back on Netflix or something. That would be so cool.
us too.
Look
Like
at-
on that new Disney thing.
Yeah, sure. Like My So-Called Life, shows that you look at from the past, Twilight Zone,
Mm-hmm.
Twin Peaks, stuff like that are just like these. I think it's just gives you some history, of like these actors in the past. So I think it's so cool.
So, Alex, could we ask a couple other actors that we've had on have mentioned they've stated that they received some residuals from Disney. Could we ask, have you received any residuals lately from Disney?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think there's stuff like that usually just goes through my business and my accountants. I'd have to kind of double back on that to see. I think, yeah, I mean, there is protection for actors, which is great. When something gets played and replayed, if it should, usually, there's accountability for companies to pay out actors, which I think is important. So at the end of the day, should So Weird ever get picked up on a bigger platform or something, that would be so cool, because like that could get played again, and my gosh, it would bring back so many memories. I haven't seen an episode of So Weird in a long time, not gonna lie. But I'm kind of like, I guess I'm saving it for a day where, I don't know, maybe it gets played again on a network, or who knows how it works. But I mean, hey, let me put it this way. If Disney wants to, send funds to support my music career, I am 100% down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This question is from Laura S. on Twitter. It's actually something I've been curious about too. Were you a fan of the show before you were cast?
I didn't grow up having Disney Channel, where I grew up in Canada.
Yeah.
I had like Pingu. I had like The Friendly Giant, Polka Dot Shorts. I had The Young and the Restless that I'd be lucky to watch with my mom. I'd sneak like 5 minutes and then run off. I didn't have. We had like cable television, and like Canadian broadcasting shows that I would watch and stuff, and documentaries. So I didn't grow up watching and having that kind of TV. So
Yeah.
it took me going down to LA, and I had to, even when it's So Weird, when I was on, like, it wasn't playing in Canada for my friends to see. Like, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like when I went back to school after doing So Weird, I wanted to play sports in high school, and I wanted to experience high school because I'd done homeschooling. And I went back to high school, and they would get like a teen bot magazine. And in Canada, once in a while, I'd be in a teen bot magazine. And it wasn't something that the kids were like, oh, this is so cool. In Canada, it was almost like, I don't know, kids are really mean. They almost had this, they didn't know what it was. And they were like, haha, you're in this magazine. And I'd be like, yeah, like, what are you doing? And I remember as like a young girl being like, like these small, like Canada, being in like a smaller town in Canada, these kids couldn't fathom, like, wait a second, so that I never really got to share, these episodes with my classmates or my friends, because it wasn't something that was being aired in Canada. It was then I'd go to the States and I'd get like stopped. It was such a weird transition, because I'd go down for like work and doing commercials and stuff for Disney, and I'd get recognized everywhere in the States. I'd get like kids coming up to me and parents and photographs, and people like swarming outside of like a mall or like outside of, but in Canada, it was not like that. So I never got that kind of like superstar experience of, there was no chance of things ever getting to my head, because I was very quickly, back in high school with kids that, dealing with like, that wasn't it wasn't a part of my experience as a kid. I still kind of had to, like, get through it like we all have to get through it. I couldn't, it wasn't like I got a free get out of jail free card because I was on TV. I just basically was like, yeah, it's different in the States. Like, kind of know who I am, and they'd go, oh, cool, moving on now. Let's go to the corner store and get ourselves a lollipop and move on with our day.
That is actually really weird considering it was shot in Canada. You'd think it would air there too, but
yeah, right. I know. It's the way it goes. Networks and all that stuff. So.
Next question is also from Laura. She asks, what do you think of the shift between the second season and the third? If you know how dark it was in the first few seasons.
Well, okay. That's interesting because I actually I have a different perspective on that because I watched the first 2 seasons after I'd filmed the third season. So for me, my connection to the show was stronger, having worked with these actors and the storylines and the writers and all of that stuff. So, I mean, by default, my favorite season is going to be the one that I experienced being a part of. But seeing the progression of how the story went and the writing, I really enjoyed the first 2 seasons, and I think all the actors were phenomenal. And I'd seen some episodes before I came in, but my storyline as Annie Phelan wasn't supposed to know the history I didn't want to kind of like have too much knowledge on Mackenzie's family and Fee, and I wanted to come in kind of like fresh, like just when that door is opened and I'm this burst of energy and basically coming from the woods. So I made a choice to not watch those 2 seasons until the show was done. When I saw them, it was really fun to see the progression of the writing in the show.
Well, that makes sense. Thank you.
So the ones that I ask everybody that joins our podcast is if, So Weird ever had some type of revival, how a lot of shows are happening right now. Would you ever consider coming back to the role as Annie?
Oh my gosh, like that kind of stuff is so cool to see because, like, of course you would. Why would you not? I mean, and obviously I'd be playing Annie older and Annie in the different events in her life, and all that stuff is so fun, and I love how that's coming back. I think it's just because there's so much good material from the past, and I think people aren't necessarily always into seeing some big blockbuster Marvel film, or I think it's fun to. I mean, even with Stranger Things, it's like it's an homage to the 80s. And as we're all getting older and experiencing life, we have memories of a time and like the 2000s and the 90s, I guess for me, kind of like lightly, but yeah, I'd be, of course, that would be so cool for sure.
Yeah, especially with how good the writing was in that show. And the last question is, what are your thoughts about how So Weird still has many passionate fans who still talk about the show? And is there anything you want to say to all the fans?
It's always so fun to see people, be able to identify and be a part of a community with projects that I've worked on. There's so many different communities I see, from Smallville to Instant Star, So Weird, Final Destination. It's always, that's my dog, Edie.
Aw, Edie.
I know. Yeah, it's always, it's really cool to see, fans connect through the work that you do. That's obviously why we're driven to do the work, because that's like one of the biggest blessings. And what's cool about social media, even though a lot of bad things are happening, like bullying and which I think is sad, and that needs to be addressed hugely. I also feel like it's beautiful to see people like yourselves coming together and getting away and, finding healthy ways of getting away from how hard the world can be. And having passions like this, I think, is a hell of a lot better than, anything else. It's hard out there and it's a hard world. So I will always be an advocate for the fun of film and TV and music. And I want to be able to give people a release from their day-to-day life. So I feel so lucky that I get to be a part of this, So that's what I'd say for that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It really touches my heart every time we talk to somebody from So Weird, because it's clear how close everybody and how strongly everybody feels about this show. I
Yeah.
love that it still stays so close to your heart. So thank you so much for being part of this tonight.
You're welcome, and I can't wait to hear it. Make sure you send it to me so I can post it on my socials.
Yeah,
Sure.
for sure. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone that listened. This has been the So Weird podcast.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, guys, be well. Have a good summer.
You
And,
too.
and hopefully I see you at a show.
Yeah, for
course.
sure.
Okay.
Thank you.